So I'm gonna use mostly white with a little bit of red and a little bit of blue. See how much stronger the blue is though than the red. So to make a purple, you're gonna want to use more red than blue in your mix. And then use enough white so that it's going to stick out on top of the black. So I want it to be pretty light at first, just because we're starting with a black canvas that's clean and, you know, dry, painted and dry. You could just paint it on any color you want, or just a plain white canvas if you just want to practice painting the seahorse. So it's totally up to you. But what I want to do is find the middle. I like to just know where it is. So up and come together, side to side, come together. So just make a crosshair. And then we're going to make sure that the seahorse kind of comes through that shape or that space. And all you're really doing is making kind of like an S shape, but it just keeps going. So from the center, you're going to curve out to the left and curve down to the right like that. So I'm just using like kind of the corner of the brush. And then going the other way, you're going to curve out like that, and then curve back in to the right. And then you can kind of spiral in. So just use the edge to make a little spiral there. And then this is going to be the face. So you can make it almost like start with a little bit of a triangle shape like that. But you want to give them a little cheek right here, so you can make a little U shape and pull that into the face. And then the neck is going to be a little bit skinnier than the stomach. So you can pull from this little cheek shape we made, pull down, making the chest. And then you can pull that little pot. We can have like a little pot belly seahorse and have a little belly. And then you're going to pull it back in. And then you can always kind of fine tune the rest of the shape. But that's just our base. And then I want to color it in with purple so I can see the shape a little bit better. No big deal. But I want my tail maybe a little thicker as it's closer to the body. And now we have a good base to start with. And what you can do is we can add a few more colors. So maybe I add a little more blue to my brush and a little more white to change my shade. So maybe it still has a little bit of red, but now it's more blue, heavy on the blue. And then I want to make a few specific things here. Like we want a little fin coming out of the back right here. So I'm just going to paint a few really soft horizontal lines that pull from a little bit out and then pull back in to the back of the seahorse. Just right there. And then maybe I want some little, like a little mane on it. And what you can do for that is you can do something similar, but maybe I make like little, almost like little triangles or little U shapes that come together at the top right here like this. And you can go all the way in the top of the head, and I'm just brushing the corner. And then I want to kind of fill it in with the corner too. So I'm just locking in these shapes really loose. And then that can kind of extend down a little bit if you want. You can even just use the edge of the brush to make some pointier little lines. Like I can just kind of go in and make them a little more pointy. Seahorses kind of look a little spiky. And I can extend that down here, but maybe make it a little smaller on this part of the creature. So it's not as crazy. But you should be able to see the difference between your shades. And then that's all I'm going to do with the square brush for now. Then I'm just going to use my round brush for most of the rest of it. And we're going to keep it really simple today. But let's go back to the first color we used, like that light purple. And let's just dial out the face a little bit. I'm going to make the little mouth a little more rounded off and just a little bigger. Like that. Maybe even enhance that little cheek a little bit. And then I can go in with that same color again. Mostly red with a little bit of blue and then a lot of white to make it light. And I can go in and extend those little blue things out. Like maybe I make like little wiggly lines coming out of those. Just really soft. Like, see how I can just barely touch and then just release the pressure as you get to the tip. They're floating underwater, so we really want it to look kind of fun like that. And maybe do a little bit down here, but I'm keeping it really loose. And then you can kind of enhance the bottom of the tail a little bit, just to give it a little more color. And then now that we're in our second layer, notice how it looks a little brighter once I added that. So I want to add a little bit of that on the belly. So I'm going to go to the belly and make little horizontal stripes in the shape like that. And that's just going to give it some texture. Now I want to leave that undercolor showing so that you could see the difference between the new color and then this texture that I'm doing. And then you can make it a little smaller as I pull it, but notice how it changed it a little bit because it's a different shade. And I can add a little of that along the back here like that, but leave some of that first shade showing still. And then you can even do some little dots like that for more texture. And we'll go in and do even more, but for now, just focus on that. And then I can do a little bit of like little lines on that blue back fin that we put in, little tiny lines. So fun. But then let's go into a darker color. Let's do some dark purple. So you're just using red and blue, about 50-50, no white added. And then I'm gonna go to the face here and I wanna make a little eye. So you're just kind of coming down from those little crazy hairdo things we did onto this face right above that cheek mark and just make a little dot for the eye. But you can even make like a little line for the mouth maybe. You can even do some little dots with that dark color on the body or make some enhanced little marks in between those little shapes that we painted. But see how I can even add a little bit of that to the lighter color. And if the lighter color is still wet, it's gonna kind of change it a little bit, which is good. We want to just try to see several shades, which is fun. So the more you add, the more fun it's gonna look. So yeah, I can make like little dots and just kind of follow these different movements. You can even add a little bit of dark into that little mohawk thing and a little bit into the fin. Not too much. But I can make little dots in the tail. You know, whatever feels fun for you. And then I'll clean the brush again, and then we want to move into like some different shades. Let's do some light pink. So we're still working with like the blue and the red, but I'm going to use white and red only this time so that we are moving more into a pink color. And then I can definitely go down into the tail and add some dots on the tail that are with this pink color. You can even add like little marks, however you want to do it. And then maybe I want to add a little bit to the belly. I'm just adding another little stripe. And all the colors that I put before are still showing. Maybe I want to do a little bit on the cheek. Like maybe it's like a little bit like cartoony, like it has blush or something. You know, use your imagination and put a little bit on the forehead, the tip of the nose, and do some in the back here, just little dots. Wherever you want to see. And then I can always go back and add more, but I'm going to switch. I just want to add a little bit. And then I'm going to go in and add some just blue and white. So, you know, we started off with the shades of purple, which are a mixture of the white and the blue and the red. Now we're just kind of moving to red only, then blue only. So you're pulling those colors apart a little bit. And then I might want to enhance this little shape here. You can make like some little wiggly lines along the end of that shape. Make some little lines pulling from it. And notice how it gives it a little more bright. It's like brighter. Maybe I do some little bright dots on the tail next to the pink, or just wherever. And my dots are so messy because I'm not trying to make it perfect, and I just gave up on that a while ago. It's not as fun for me. But see, I can enhance these little things with some brighter color. Maybe I do a little bit of blue dots on the body too. Maybe a little bit on the face. Maybe like around the eye or something. And then you can also do some like different kind of shades here. Maybe I want to do some yellow kind of colors. So maybe I have some yellow with a little bit of red. It kind of makes like a light orange, but I'm still going to want the white in there. But it's going to look kind of golden. And then I can go in and do maybe a little bit on the belly with that over the pink. And you can maybe fill it in a little more or just change the movement of your brush strokes a little bit. Maybe I want some of that on the face. Do it around the eye or above the eye. Maybe you have a little bit of that on the tail. So we're really just letting these colors dance together. It's really fun to do that. And it's okay if you paint over some of the other colors. It's not wrong. There is no right or wrong like in this. It's not about that. Sometimes people are like, how does they want like my opinion or approval or something. I'm like, you know, if you like it, then you're good to go. Some people might disagree about that, but I really think that it's just a matter of what you enjoy. And then last but not least, we'll add a little bit of green. That way we have pretty much all our rainbow colors. We've got our purple, we got pink, we got blue, we got the yellow with, it's kind of like an orangish shady yellow. So it's like yellow and orange combo. And then for green, we can stick with more of just the blue and the yellow. And just make sure before you change colors, just clean your brush. And I can make it really pastel by having a lot of white mixed in. Or I can make it a little darker by having more or less white. So it's up to you. I'm going to go kind of pastel just for fun. And then I'm going to go and dab some on the body. Maybe I'll just keep it more towards the middle. Maybe I'll do just a little bit under the eye or something for a little bit, just to pull that color up there a bit. And then maybe I put some along, like little dots along the back. So you kind of just choose different spots of the figure to add these different colors. Maybe I even want a little bit of that green in this little fin shape. And then last but not least, you can take your black, before we do our highlights, you can take your black, maybe add a dot to the eye to make that part darker. You can clean up any parts of the figure, like maybe you want the belly to look smaller or bigger or whatever. I mean, like if you want to go anywhere smaller though, this is going to be your chance to go in and carve the shape out. Like maybe you want these lines a little thinner. So I always love painting on a black canvas just because it is really versatile in that regard. Like if I want to paint over things, it's very easy to do that. So maybe I want to kind of bring this in and make like a little line here to make that enhance like that little cheek. Or the mouth. I can put a little line. I can even put some dark spots on the body, maybe just in some parts to break it up and give it some contrast. If you feel like your figure looks too flat, then the only thing that you need to do is make sure you have enough contrast. So sometimes taking a little bit of black or even more dark purple in there is going to be what you need to make it have more contrast. And then I'm going to take the white And I can dab some of that in the face. I can put it really anywhere I want. I'm going to kind of put it almost like I can highlight the face and just add some light color to the top or to the top, the front of the nose. You can add little dots on top of anything with the white. Maybe I want to highlight this little yellowish, pinkish kind of part where I just added all these little fun things. Maybe I want a little more highlight here. Maybe I want a little bit of highlight around this fin, but like really subtle. So I can just make some little lines. So in the back here, maybe these little things, get a little highlight. You know, I'm going to do these things, these little wiggle things going out, just to make them pop a little bit. But I don't want to cover my first color all the way. It's still there. And then I can add like a little glimmer in the eye, maybe like a little dot in the eye on top of the black. You can do either one dot or two. I like to do two sometimes just because I feel like it looks a little funner. And then you basically have a super simple seahorse. Like you can take that as far as you want. Like I can put more stuff on there. I can do some splatter paint, which I've done in other things, or you can just do some dots. You can make bubbles, which I have a video on how to make bubbles. Bubbles could look cool on this. Let's do a couple bubbles just because that could be fun. And I always recommend having like a couple sizes, like 2 or 3 sizes minimum, 2 minimum. But you just take your cap. Maybe you haven't watched that video where I did the bubbles, so I'm just going to do a couple because I love doing them. You're just going to tap it in the white or a light color. It doesn't have to be white. It just needs to stand out on the black. And then maybe I put a little bubble there. And then I'm just tapping it in the white, the edge of the lid, so that it has like the white on it. And then maybe here. So do a couple small ones, and then maybe I do like 2 big ones. I don't want to go too crazy. And I'll have one going off the canvas like that, maybe one off the canvas up there, and then there. I don't want to overcrowd it. But with that, you can kind of, with a clean brush, you can like blend out the white a little bit and just soften it as you pull it in towards the center. So that's one thing you can do with the bubble. I mean, and you can always make this more intricate or less intricate. But see how I can kind of pull the paint that was on the lid into the center, but it's really faint. So I'm not adding paint, I'm just spreading the paint that's there. I can do that to any of these shapes. And some of them aren't even full circles, but that's okay. It just makes it look a little more transparent, which is fine. So, but coming in and brushing it to create some transparency is kind of cool. And some of them aren't that thick, so you don't have to do it everywhere. And then I can just take something like my pink and go in and just make a little dash on the inside of the bubble. A little dash like that. Okay. And then once you have that, maybe you take some yellow and do the same, but in some other part. So whichever colors you like, you can do all of the colors that are in the seahorse, which could look cool. So maybe I do them all. We have a little bit of green. They're like rainbow bubbles. Because if you look at bubbles, they kind of do have like a rainbow-like appearance. And then it doesn't have to be a lot either. Just get a little pop of that color in there and it'll look cool. Oops, And then maybe some purple. I'm gonna skip purple actually because the Seahorse is mostly purple, but I'll do a little bit of blue.